Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to go back and work on one of the original Penn International Series. This is the International 2, the 12 LT. LT sometimes is mistaken as light tackle. It's not. It means luxury tournament reels. This is a beautiful reel. This one was brought in by David. David brought in quite a few reels, and he was actually out looking for some modern reels. Found this one available through, I think it was Facebook Marketplace, and well, he decided it was a good opportunity to purchase this, and his intended use is to use it for tile fishing off of the mid-Atlantic coast. Tile fish are known for being deep, typically 500 or more feet down. They're a great species to go after. You need some good equipment. This one's in beautiful condition. And well, we're going to take it apart. We're going to show you how this reel is made, how to service it, how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. All right, we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces. The first one out was the handle. And now we got to remove these 3 screws that are holding a retention plate on. And the retention plate is the home for that preset adjuster there. The way it comes out is there's a C-clip on the back of it holding it in place, and if you need to remove that piece, well, you would want to take this plate off and then remove the little adjuster. I pulled those 3 screws to make sure that they're all the same size. They are. And I also took the opportunity to go out and get the schematic so that I know what it is. Now, I've worked on these reels in the past, so I'm pretty familiar with it, but it never hurts to have the chance to take a look at these, just in case. Now, what David had asked me to do was make sure that he got a good deal on the reel. For the price that he paid, I'm sure he got a good deal on the reel. But he had also asked me to make sure that if I identify any parts in there that show excessive use, that maybe we go out and get them, like a reserve drag plate, because after 20 years, these parts are becoming hard to find. And well, he's one of the fellows that doesn't mind having a spare because he intends to keep the reel for quite some time to come. All right, you can see as I'm kind of cleaning off here that there's some dried grease on that pre-spool adjuster. And this is the C-clip I was referring to. If you need to pull that button out, this slides up and out, and you can get it out of the slot there and replace the piece not needed here. I'm going to remove next. Let's see if I can't get this off first. I'm going to remove the key, the lever for the adjuster. It's a good place to mark where you are, just in case your reel comes apart in pieces and you kind of lose your track. But notice that where we are in the preset right here is that we have that slot kind of facing almost 1 o'clock, if you want to judge that from the bottom here. But, also notice where those 2 angle pieces are. They're kind of at well, 2 and 4, if you will. That's important when you go to reset your pieces, because if you don't reset the pieces quite right, you may not get free spool out of it. It's always a good idea when you start to have the reel in free spool for your service, and that will aid you in reassembling it relatively pain-free, if you will. There's a lot of folks that move those pieces and parts around, and then, well, they're locked out of free spool until they get it back to where it belongs. Those 2 have some little ferrules or shields in them. Right now I'm trying to find my pliers so that we don't lose those. I guess they won't come out until we take this piece off. But sometimes they have a tendency, like right now, to move that. So I want to take those 2 ferrules out there. And I want to put those right with the screws that I removed them from so that I know where they go upon reinstall. It's kind of interesting as you do more and more of these types of reels. There's a small furl on this one. There's spacers that gives that track for the free spool adjuster room to operate. But what I was thinking about before, as you do more and more reels, you become cognizant of a lot of the things that can go wrong. I just got a note from a fellow in my email. It said, I was working on this reel. I looked down on my workbench and there's a ball bearing there. I don't know where it came from. Any help? Well, I wish I could tell him where it came from, but I don't know. So I just referred him to the schematic. Maybe you can kind of map back to the schematic and see. All right, here's an example of this. So we just removed the one from here. We've loosened that one. We're down here removing one. Notice where these openings are. This screw and this screw hole are open. When you go to reinstall, you don't want to put screws in those two slots. Those are the ones for the spacer bars that we just removed. Well, it's an easy enough mistake if you're not paying any attention here to have an issue with that upon reinstall. I'm doing the same thing here that I normally do when I take screws out. I want to make sure that they're all the same size and identified. And we should be able to pull this side plate off now. It looks like I didn't get these screws all the way out, at least this one. They started spinning as though they were out. Okay, now we can remove that. Our axle shaft has come out. And you can see it's been a while since this one was serviced. I think that's what David was telling me. He said that the fellow hadn't used it in quite some time, and could I do a service in addition to looking at the worn pieces and parts? And the answer is of course. So let's take a look at the side plate. We've just pulled our gear assembly out. This is a single speed assembly. This is your anti-reverse assembly. And we have a bunch of dried grease in there. My go-to product for dried grease is penetrating oil. It tends to loosen it right up, as you can see. I'll use a cotton swab to kind of brush that around and get rid of all that old goop. Goop is a real service term. I'll take a paper towel so we can clean it down a little bit more. You want to get the oil greases and the like out of there. They will degrade the performance of the reel if you're going to leave that stuff in there. Okay, we have our anti-reverse, which has got a pile of dirt on it. We have some old grease in the carrier here. And I would say this reel has not been fishing in quite some time. It is a nice clean version of the reel. It's one I'm sure has an awful lot of fishing left in it. But it's been a while. Okay, just checking on the orientation of that. There's a spring on the bottom of this. Means that the dog is going to come this way and work its way up. So I just want to make sure that we have free flow and no issues with all grease jamming this up. I think we're good. Yep, we should be fine. All right. While we're at it, we might as well just take a moment here. This main gear is dead dry. I think all of the greases that were in here just leaked out. Notice that there is a Teflon washer on the back end of the stem here. Spray of oil to loosen any grease that might be in the teeth. Hard bristle brush. Just pull that through to get the old greases and oils out. Now it doesn't appear that there's any in here, so let's call this for demonstration purposes. Alright, we're going to use fishing reel grease. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel grease. Not because it's a Penn reel, but because it's fishing reel grease. I'm not really caring what reel grease you use, but I do care that you use a reel grease. And I get asked frequently, when should I service the reel? And my general take on the servicing of the reel is every year, annual service. All right, this one seems to be stuck in the back here, so let's try and get that burring off. It seems like this was a victim of dried grease. The burring is working fine, but you can see we had dried accumulated grease. It kind of was sticking there. So back to our magic elixir or penetrating oil. Clean that up off both sides so that it no longer sticks. And then we got a puddle of grease here. We'll do the same thing that we did with the main gear. I'm going to just grab that, pull that onto our paper towel. And this is really thick stuff here. I'm going to need an assist here. I'm going to use an awl to pick through that. And this is what a lot of the service and repair is all about. It's about making sure that the reel is cleaned of the old stuff, that it's inspected so that any worn parts are replaced, and that it's relubricated before it goes fishing again. Sometimes I feel like a dentist when I'm doing this, but you need to pull through all of these gear teeth, make sure that those channels are not clogged. Okay, got it. You may have noticed that there was a series of washers. There's a stack of 4 washers that were on here on the back end. They came off when I was wrestling with the burring. So I'm going to wipe those down as well. These are tension washers. They're going to help with the sensitivity on the adjuster. Okay, we're going to take that burring now and put that back into the case. Once you place the burring in, you want to oil everything. Make sure again that it's running nice and free and easy. Bring your main gear in, and then you're going to have to push down on this anti-reverse dog in order to seat it properly. You won't get it all the way in until that dog is all the way down, so use a pick or something to continue to push that down and away. Bring it in, and then test. Make sure that as you turn it, your anti-reverse dog is working. And you can see it's working just fine. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for a moment. You could actually rest that. But just be careful on the stem coming through on that. You may disrupt that. All right, we have our shaft. It's a beautiful stainless steel shaft. We have the 4 washers that come next. And we have the spool assembly, which is the second side of the service. Now this always drives me nuts, but there's too much line on this spool. You should have a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch of line on the rim of the spool. Anything more than that, it just traps it. It traps it. It tends to work its way behind, and it tends to just foul up the performance of the reel. So I'll take off about 15 yards of that, and I'm going to grab a rubber band. The rubber band is here so that I can hold the line so that that tab doesn't get caught on the way back in. All right, a little bit more of cleanup here. There's pile of old grease here, so we're going to use the least abrasive method possible, which in this case is a paper towel. Clean that up, test your bearing, it's working fine. Oil that bearing. And then we can come around to the other side. So here's our 4 of those washers. They alternate. So you go, they're a bubble. So belly faces up, belly goes down. Belly faces up, belly goes down. Now you can, if you want less sensitivity, you can stack them all so there's no gap. But generally speaking, you want that gap there. Okay, back end of the reel. So I think what we're seeing in terms of a pattern here is just it's dried grease. There's nothing seriously wrong. There's no broken pieces or parts that we need to worry about. But there is cleaning to be done, and that's normal. Overall, I think he's got a nice reel. It was certainly not dinged up or scratched, which kind of suggests it hasn't been out on the water that much. And that might explain why the greases in that are so dry. All right, one more shot here. We'll do the same thing. We'll clean this plate off. And as we're cleaning the plate off, you're going to notice that there are 4 screws holding this on. Well, while I'm doing this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn about fishing reels, if you'd like to learn how to service them, if you'd like to understand more about how they were made, what their purpose and use is, and, well, if they're popular or not popular, what the flaws may be in the reel, and so on, then I try to cover all of that as I work on quite a variety of reels. Today we're working on a ocean trolling reel. It's a lever drag. Tomorrow I might be working on a pond reel. You never know. It's intended for freshwater bluegill or crappie fishing. It's whatever comes into my shop is what you're looking at in terms of the reel of the day and the service agenda behind them and how to keep them fishing for a long time to come. There's 4 screws. I did the same thing as I've done on most of these now. I want to make sure that they're all the same. And then I put them into a parts tray, and I recommend that you have a strategy for what it is that you're going to be doing with those parts before you start to remove them. Mine is kind of an organized chaos, but yours could be different. You may have a different way to go about organizing your pieces and parts. And this is what David really wanted me to get to. It was the drag washer. We wanted to make sure that this drag plate is in good condition because the originals like this one are no longer available. There is a substitute plate, but I suspect that it belongs to a different model. But my suspicion is that as soon as that plate runs out, you're going to be in trouble if you need a drag washer. These have some dried grease in it, but the actual fabric on the plate itself is in good condition. So how do you solve for that? You want to get a light brush, just pull through. You can see I'm pulling the old grease that's stuck in those cross hatches, pulling them off. Look at all that old grease. So this one's in good condition, but you may have gotten drag slip on this if you didn't do what we're doing here in terms of cleaning all of that out. Yeah, much better. You can see all the cross hatching, and this drag washer has been lightly used. This is your pressure plate on that side, so make sure that it all gets cleaned up. And we can start to put this reel back together again then. So we've oiled the bearing on that side, we've cleaned up the axle shaft. You want to bring the axle shaft through. We have our bearing on this side. I'm not sure if I remembered if I oiled it or not, so let's go do that. Next up, you want to bring a spring onto that assembly, then the pressure plate, and then the outer plate. Now, that outer plate had the 4 screws that go in there, so go to your parts tray, find those 4 screws. And let's go install those. So I get the idea why they called it the luxury tournament, the LT. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that means light tackle LT. It doesn't. It means luxury tournament. This is a beautiful reel. It was well made, high quality components. And as I mentioned, David's going to take it for deep fishing. He's going to use it for tile fishing. But there's no reason in the world this can't be used as a trolling reel, particularly inshore. And again, along the mid-Atlantic coast, we get a good run of striped bass spring and fall, probably starting in about a month or so, usually late March or early November. I'm sorry, early April. I had November on my mind because that's the fall run. But if you have this type of a reel, you can make a pretty easy go of the fishing. All right, one more thing to do on this one, and that is to put grease onto our axle shaft / pinion gear. This will intersect with the main gear. You saw how that came out because it was stuck. Let's reinsert the spool into the carrier. When you get ready to install the side plate, make sure that your anti-reverse is still working. And this might be a good time, at least on a temporary, to put the handle on, because that free-floating main gear, from time to time, that's going to move forward and you're going to lose the anti-reverse. You're going to go through the whole process of these next steps here, only to find out that, well, didn't work out quite the way you wanted it to. All right, so we have that anti-reverse is working. We've got our spool in. I'm going to bring this across. Then you need to line your holes up here. One more after this to complete the outer side of it. That's the one that goes below. So this is in a northeast-southwest pattern. I think we report back to David that all the parts are in very good condition. The reel is in a nice condition as well. And that the core thing to do here is to just make sure that it stays maintained on a regular basis so that it can be fished worry-free for a long time to come. Next step then is to put the ring on. To install the ring now, we want to make sure that we have the spacer on the back of the screw. Bring the spacer over, align that center screw, and start tightening it. Now before I go much further, I like to make sure that I put that adjuster arm on, and then align that with the keys that are on the inner portion of this. And then bring the other two long screws that you have in, tighten those down. Now we didn't disturb that preset adjuster. You can push that out, you can clean that up if it had any dirt and debris in there. If you do, you want to make sure that you reset this, as we mentioned before, where you saw that free spool location. All right, once you get those rings tight, make sure you give it an extra little twist there, just so that it doesn't get ruined by the boat vibration. All right, we're in free spool now. That should be working. And we want to take that handle off ever so carefully because, well, I still don't want to knock that anti-reverse off. I don't know if I have it anchored enough. Let's take our preset adjuster plate, bring that over the top, and then you can align, well, I got it because we didn't move the thing, you can align that with the slot in that adjuster cam. Button down on the plate screws. So if there's any issue, it's always that darn little anti-reverse. That main gear tends to slide when you're going to reinstall the side plate. So use that handle to hold it from sliding. It should be okay. All right, here we go. Back to the handle. Handle screw. And I'm already noticing one part left in this tray, so I think we're pretty much done. The key, of course, is going to be how does it work, and making sure that the pieces that we've taken apart have gone back in the right sequence and that it operates the way it should, so that when David takes it fishing, it performs flawlessly. All right, this is the last part. It's the tie-down screw for the handle screw. Drop that one. Yep, this is real time, folks. And me and little screws, well, we don't play that well together sometimes. Okay, let's take a look, see what we got here. We should be in free spool right now. There we are. We should be able to bring it forward and have our gear full drag. Now test your full drag. Now that's at max drag. We can still turn the handle while locking down the spool, so we need a little bit of an adjustment. As it says, less is counterclockwise, more is clockwise. Always adjust your reels in the free spool position. Let's just turn that a notch or two. Again, you want to confirm that you have the free spool. Lock it in for first strike. Bring it over for second, and now we're almost there. Bring it back off. Another turn or two. All the way through. Now we're locked in. So that's adjusted the right way. This has got years, I mean years, of worry-free fishing left in it. A nice purchase overall on a Facebook Marketplace reel. And that's how you take apart, service, and keep a Penn Reels 12 LT Luxury Tournament International 2 fishing reel, fishing for a long time to come. I hope you've enjoyed it. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. And I want to thank you, the viewers, for making the channel what it is, for helping us to kind of set the agenda, if you will, by letting me know what you like and what you don't like, and well, kind of guiding me in terms of the videos you would like to see. If you like this video, please indicate that. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please use that notification button. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.